On today's episode, we're answering the question, no, we're not, because I'm on the wrong damn outline.
So I will say that one of the things that puts people off about self-publishing is there are some investments that need to be made. Some experts say that it costs about $10,000 to self-publish a book. That's not true. You, but there are a few things I would not skimp on. The first thing is the book cover. Get somebody to design a good book cover, especially if you're going for print, because if your book cover looks like crap, people aren't going to buy it. I don't care if it's online or if it's in a brick and mortar store, people aren't going to buy it. You can find somebody to do it for really cheap. I don't know. Most of my clients pay anywhere from 300 to 900 to do it. There are cheaper options, but you kind of sometimes get what you pay for. So just beware. Always ask to see samples. Another thing is the formatting of the inside of the book. So Kindle changed, I think, because so many people were submitting books that kind of looked like crap. It used to be pretty easy to do this in Microsoft Word. You could format it for Kindle, make it look pretty decent. KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, rejects a lot of books now because they weren't formatted properly. So usually it's important to get a graphic designer, which can be the same or different person from your book cover artist, depending on their skills. So you need to pay somebody to format that book. If you're having a print book, you absolutely have to pay somebody to format. So let me clarify. If you're doing digital only, you need to get a formatter. You can probably find this on Fiverr for really cheap. I mean, that's fine. If you want to do a print book too, you need to get a second type of formatting. Most people I work with, so I have some graphic designers I work with, they offer my clients a package where they can have the cover, the electronic digital design, and the paperback hardcover design. So those three things are important, especially the book cover and kind of how the paperback looks. Another thing is editing, proofreading. So I'm also an editor or proofreader, and most of the clients I coach through writing the book want me to edit or proofread it. Some folks come to me when they're done with the book and want it edited or proofread. That's important, especially nowadays. I notice reviews on Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes and Noble all the time where people are saying this person obviously didn't have their book edited. I just emphasize that self-published doesn't have to mean badly published. So you can, and be careful when choosing an editor. I'm not saying this because I'm necessarily saying hire me. Right now I have a waiting list at the time we're recording this. But just be careful. There are people online who say they're editing your book and they're running it through Grammarly and charging things like $100, $150. And then I've had folks come back to me after they said I was too expensive and said, help, I don't care what it costs. Everybody's like telling me that my book is crap. There was an editor who actually did this to a friend of my mom's who didn't notice that the graphic designer had misspelled the author's name. So the author's name was spelled wrong a couple different places. So just be careful. You can find, like, if budget's an issue, you can find a qualified editor who's just starting out, but just make sure that you get references, etc., and that they're going to actually read every word of your book, ideally at least twice, instead of running it through Grammarly and other software.
So I want to go back to covers because I am the kind of person when I want to read a book, if it's a business book, I go by topic, but I also go by cover. And if it's a fun leisure book, I completely judge a book by its cover. I'm just going to put that one out there. I totally do it. And I dare anybody else to say they don't do the same thing. What should we be doing with our cover design? I mean, I know my own personal style might be wrong for a cover design. Do you have any best practices?
So that's a great question, and it's not one that's easy to answer because every book and every author have a different purpose. So obviously, if you're a coach, consultant, business owner, and have branding, your fonts, your colors, etc., you need to have them stick to that if it's going to be an integral part of your business. You know, the memoir I work with, it was really important to him to have a picture of his family on the cover. So he had a professional photographer take a picture of him and his family. They were actually facing the ocean. And it was turned out really, really nicely. So, and that was an eye-catching cover. And I have clients, you don't necessarily have to have a fancy picture on the cover. It just needs to look interesting. I don't really know how to explain it. It's just the colors, and this is more the graphic designer's forte. Maybe that's why I'm having difficulty explaining it. The colors, the way the fonts look, just any stock images they use, they just need to pop out. They really need to pop out.
A client of mine was working at the time that they were recording this, she's finalizing her cover. The first cover design that we saw was a get what you pay for kind of thing. It was a lower end thing. And the font that was used and the colors that were used were, when I saw it, interesting. So the font was very vampiric. And the image that was used was of newspapers piled on top of each other, or books
Okay.
piled on top of each other. And on closer inspection, those books were written in Russian.
Okay. Wow.
And if you zoomed out, if you did the 30,000 view look of the book with the vampiric font in red and the thing in the background, my vision of it was, this looks like a book burning.
Mm-hmm.
It appeared visually the way the books were stacked, they were about to be burned. And it was very, there was this sort of like Cold War feel to it. It
Right.
freaked me out. So the client didn't even see it. So I mentioned it to the client. They're like, oh yeah, I see it now and I can't unsee it now. So they had the whole book cover redesigned. It looks amazing now. I'm super excited for her. And it really intrinsically matters. And it's the kind of cover that would interest me, as a reader. And it's a business book. And I'm on the same camp with Allison that I do judge my pleasure reading books totally by the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And Allison and I share a similar interest in our, the pleasure reading books that we have. And we're both like, oh, I hated the cover for that one. I didn't even touch it. Right. So there is something to be said there, 100%. And I think the message that you're getting across and that we're getting from you is definitely, you kind of get what you pay for in terms of that. So don't skip out on that one thing and go for a designer that's going to spell your name correctly. I think that's probably a really good way to put it.
Right. And if they're, a lot of designers do use stock photos, and that's fine, but it's usually worth it to pay for a stock photo, even if it's like just a few dollars, instead of having them go get the free stock photos. Because I can't tell you how many books I see on Kindle that are using the same stock photos. So, I mean, this is something that's usually anywhere from $1 to $10, depending on what it is. So, yeah, again, it's just, that's such a minute thing. Yeah, other people are going to use it, but they're probably using it for different things. And it's not going to be thousands or millions upon millions of people using the same stock photo. So you don't have to go the route of the professional photographer like my one client did, but there's just things you can do to make it as unique as possible. Because at the end of the day, there's so much out there now, especially with self-publishing, that it's harder to get people's attention.
I think too, when we talk about the investment of self-publishing, we also have to take into account the potential return, right? If you
Yes.
set yourself up for success, you can use your book to create leads and clients and all of that stuff that we want to use our books for in our business. And so is it really worth it to skimp on a couple $100 here and there or a $10 photo if it's going to cost you what could be a $2, $3, $10, $20,000 client? It doesn't make sense.
Right, exactly. And like, my clients had people coming to them for coaching. I had one client, he was delivering Uber Eats before he took time off to write his memoir, used his memoir to launch like a speaking coaching business, and now also co-founded a drug rehab facility, wound up buying a house in another state, etc. Like I said, he really, really, really hustled. But, these things happen. People get interviewed on national TV as a result of a well-written book. It's happened for a few of my clients. So, Time Magazine recently interviewed one of my clients about her book that's coming out. Again, I'm not saying I can wave a wand and make these things happen, but I can definitely help set you up for success by just following some simple steps. It doesn't have to even be the $10,000 I talked about.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this behind the scenes information about the publishing industry and what it's really like to self-publish. And we love numbers. So I love hearing what things might actually cost because Jenny and I might be doing this soon-ish if she gets her way because she's pushing me pretty hard. Okay. So, really quick before we wrap up, I would just love to know where we can find out more about you.
So you can download my free ebook, Three Things You Must Know Before Writing Your Book, at gettheirattentionnow.com/book. That's gettheirattentionnow.com/book. I also have a mini course called Get Your Book Out of Your Head into Reality at getthatbookwritten.com. That's getthatbookwritten.com. I'm on all kinds of social media. You can look me up, Stephanie Mojica, and I'm always happy to help.
My nostrils were flaring. I know.
Shut. Stop. Okay.